Hinneh Anoki Nitsab. The theology of total presence, the pillar of readiness, and the eye of the water. We arrive at verse 13, a verse that is only a single breath long in Hebrew yet contains within its 10 words a complete and comprehensive theology of discernment, of presence, of the right posture before the divine encounter. The servant declares, Hinneh Anoki Nitsab ha-mayim you venot and sheha ir yodjot li ha-mayim. Behold, I am standing at the eye of the waters, and the daughters of the men of the city are going out to draw water. We will spend this entire study within this single verse, because it is one of those moments in scripture where the text is so densely loaded that to move through it quickly would be to miss most of what it is carrying. Hin. The demonstrative of total presence. The word hin, often translated behold, look, here, is one of the most theologically significant particles in the entire Hebrew Bible. It appears at every point in the canon where something of ultimate significance is about to be disclosed, where the divine and the human are about to converge in a moment that will change everything. The angel says hin to Hagar in the desert of Genesis 16, commanding her to look at what is directly before her, the spring that was already there, the future that was already prepared, the child who would be born. Abraham responds Hinneni to the divine call on the mountain of Moriah, here I am, in the most total declaration of covenantal availability in the Hebrew Bible. Isaiah says Hinneni at the moment of his commissioning in the temple. Mary says Hinhi dul kurio, behold the handmaid of the Lord, at the Annunciation. In every case, hin is the declaration of a soul that is fully, completely, unambiguously present, not performing presence, not managing presence, not appearing to be present while secretly negotiating its escape from the moment, but actually, bodily, attentionally, unreservedly present in the specific here and now of the encounter. The servant does not say, I have been here for some time. He does not say, as the evening arrived, I positioned myself. He says hin, now, in this present moment, this is where I am. This is the language of kairos, of the appointed now. The 20 days of desert travel exist in the past. The outcome of the evening exists in the future. The servant is entirely in the present. For the soul that is perpetually trapped in the past, replaying old wounds, rehearsing old failures, re-experiencing old conversations, or perpetually trapped in the future, anticipating disasters, rehearsing worst-case scenarios, catastrophizing about outcomes that have not yet and may never occur, the servant's hin is a gentle but firm invitation back to the present. The encounter you have been preparing for cannot happen in the past or the future. It can only happen now. The water is here now. The evening is here now. The approaching footsteps are here now. Hin. Be here. The documents you have shared identify the cultivated capacity for hin as the foundation of accurate perception in the discernment process. Without full presence, signs are missed. Without genuine attentiveness, the appointed one can arrive and be overlooked because the discerning soul is absorbed in yesterday's regret or tomorrow's anxiety. The servant's hin is the behavioral foundation for everything that follows, for the recognition of Rebecca's gam, for the knowing of Yuwaheda, for the whole sequence of covenant confirmation that is about to unfold. Everything depends on being here, now, fully. Anoki Nitsab. The emphatic self and the pillar of covenant readiness. I am standing, Anoki Nitsab. The pronoun is Anoki, the emphatic, weighty, theologically phrased form of the first person singular. In Hebrew there are two ways to say I, en-I, the ordinary pronoun, and Anoki, the emphatic form that carries a weight and a solemnity that en-I does not. God uses Anoki in the most momentous of divine self-disclosures, Anoki YHWH Elohicha, I, with full impersonal emphasis, I am the Lord your God, at Sinai. The choice of Anoki in the servant's declaration is the choice of a man who is not drifting, not distracted, not dissociated from himself by the anxiety of the mission. He knows who he is. He knows whose servant he is. He knows what he is doing here. His identity is present in full. He is not a diffuse, anxious figure hoping the right thing will happen. He is a coherent, grounded, self-aware human being who has positioned himself intentionally and is now fully present in that positioning. The participle nitsab, standing, comes from a root that implies the solidity of a planted pillar, a boundary marker, a sentinel at their post. In military contexts, nitsab describes a soldier standing at attention, fully alert, fully prepared, fully available, not at rest but not in motion, in the charged readiness between rest and action. In prophetic contexts, nitsab describes a soul that has stationed itself before the divine for a specific and weighty purpose, not the casual standing of someone waiting for a bus but the purposeful standing of someone who has placed themselves in relationship with a specific intention. The combination Anoki Nitsab therefore creates a portrait of maximum psychological integration at the moment of discernment, full self-awareness, Anoki, full positional grounding, Nitsab, full attentional presence, Hin. The servant is not scattered. He is not fragmented between the anxiety of the past journey and the uncertainty of the future outcome. He is gathered, recollected, in the contemplative language of Teresa of Avila's interior castle, into a single, coherent, fully present stance of readiness. This is what the documents describe as the psyche at its most functional: low internal fragmentation, high coherence between perception and action, strong internal containment structure, the capacity to hold uncertainty without collapsing into it. The Jesuit tradition of the spiritual exercises speaks of the colloquy, the direct, personal, gathered address of the soul to God, in which every scattered faculty is called back from its wandering and organized around a single point of attention. The servant's Anoki Nitsab is this gathering, this colloquy, this presentation of the full and coherent self before the divine in the specific moment of the mission's highest need. And it is a healing model for every person whose inner life has been fragmented by the trauma of unpredictable care, by the chronic hypervigilance of an unsafe childhood, by the dissociation that the body develops as a protection against pain it cannot otherwise survive. The servant's gathering is not achieved by willpower alone. It is the fruit of surrender, of having placed the camel's burdens down before the prayer, of having aligned the mission with the covenant promise, of having said Hakre na and released the outcome into hands that are more capable than his own. Al-ein ha-mayim. The eye of the waters and the reciprocal gaze. By the eye of the waters, al-ein ha-mayim. The Hebrew word ein means both spring and eye, and this dual meaning is not incidental in this verse. It is the semantic and theological hinge of the servant's declaration of position. He is standing at the place where the earth's eye looks upward at the sky, and where the human eye looks downward into the earth. He is at the intersection of two gazes, the gaze of the earth that discloses its hidden depth through the spring, and the gaze of the human soul that descends into the depth in search of the living water. The documents you have shared capture this beautifully. When the soul seeks God, it discovers that it has already been seen by God. The servant is looking for Rebecca. But the eye of the water is also looking at the servant, or rather, the God who oversees the eye of the waters, the God who formed the underground springs and directed them to this specific location to create this specific well, is seeing the servant as fully as the servant is seeing the evening scene. Bernard of Clairvaux, in his sermons on the Song of Songs, describes the mystical encounter between God and the soul as a mutual seeing, the gaze of the finite meeting the gaze of the infinite at the place of depth, neither gaze overwhelming the other, both gazes transformed by the encounter. The well as ein, as I, places the servant at the most transparent point in the landscape, the place where the hidden interior of the earth becomes visible, where what is underground and subterranean and out of sight breaks through to the surface. This is the spatial equivalent of the Hinneh Anoki Nitsab declaration. Just as the servant is fully present and fully visible in his standing, the earth is fully present and fully disclosing in the upwelling of the spring. Everything is transparent here. Everything is visible. The servant is at the place where hiddenness ceases and disclosure begins. In the Kabbalistic reading of the Torah, the al-ein of the well connects to the Sephirah of Binah, understanding, the third emanation on the Kabbalistic tree of life, associated with the divine womb, the inexhaustible deep from which all the subsequent expressions of divine energy flow. The well at Haram is not merely a water source. It is a point of cosmic contact with the inexhaustible source of all life. The servant standing al-ein ha-mayim is standing at one of those places where the cosmic depth of divine provision intersects with the immediate practical need of a dusty, thirsty afternoon. This is where the encounter must happen, not in the formal halls of Bethuel's household, not in the structured social world of the city, but here, at the eye, where the depth is accessible and the surface is transparent and the divine and the human are in their most direct and unmediated proximity. The daughters going out. The living liturgy of the ordinary and the logic of the filter. You were not in Sheha ir yodjot li ha-mayim, and the daughters of the men of the city are going out to draw water. The participial form yodzo, going out, describes not a single event but a habitual rhythm. The women have been going out at this hour every evening. It is their regular practice, their daily liturgy, their unfailing contribution to the household's survival. The well at evening is where this liturgy is performed, day after day, week after week, season after season. The servant has positioned himself inside this liturgy. He has made himself part of the daily rhythm of the community's water drawing. And within the uniformity of this rhythm, many women, the same task, the same place, the same hour, the appointed one will become distinguishable through a single specific behavioral nuance. Not through appearance. Not through social status. Not through any visible marker of covenant suitability. But through the garm, through the also, through the voluntary extension of service beyond what was explicitly requested. The documents you have shared illuminate this with a precision that rewards careful attention. The servant is not asking for spectacle. He is not asking for a reversal of nature. He is asking for a small, repeatable behavior that reveals deeper disposition, what behavioral psychology calls a low-cost prosocial behavior, an act of minor generosity that requires no extraordinary resources but that discloses, in its spontaneity and its voluntary scope, the underlying moral orientation of the person who performs it. The filter is elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its revelatory power. In a field where everyone is performing the same basic task, the one whose inner orientation is structured by genuine, unconditional generosity will be visible in the one additional word she says and the 3 additional hours she works. Obligation reveals structure. Surplus reveals nature. This is among the most important principles of the entire passage, and it speaks directly into the discernment challenges of every human life. You want to know who a person genuinely is? Don't watch them when they are being formally evaluated. Watch them when the minimum has already been accomplished and only the garm, the also, the beyond what was asked, remains as an available option. What a person does with the garm reveals what their character is actually made of. Let the Word of God continue doing its work in you long after this video ends. Return to these 5 verses. Read them slowly. Read them in the way you would walk through a sanctuary, one step at a time, fully present to what each step reveals. Let a servant's prayer become your template. Let the camel's kneeling become your permission. Let the evening well become your regular meeting place with the God who has been waiting there since before you were formed. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Share it with the thirsty. Send it to the one who is in the desert. Tell them that the servant is at the well and the gifts are loaded and the prayer has been prayed and the God of the covenant never once fails those he has sent. Contact us at christ4life143@gmail.com. We welcome you into this community of people who take the word seriously because the word has taken them seriously. Stay tuned for the next video. Join us next time as we continue verse by verse.